Our gospel reading this day is from the 10th chapter of John, and you can follow along on page 977 in your pew Bible. Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers." Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." The gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. So yesterday was one of those very rare days in our household where nobody in our family had anything scheduled. This almost never happens. And so my husband said to me Friday night, "What do you want to do tomorrow?" And I looked at him and I said, "I want to go take a tour of the Resource Recovery and Recycling Authority of Southeast Oakland County." Seriously, that's what I said. Now, this was, as you can imagine, not the response he expected. But it is true, the RRRASOC in Southfield was having an open house where they were giving tours of their facility. And I was seriously interested in seeing what happened to my recyclables after they got in the big bin and got dumped in the recycling truck and drove away. In my defense, we also went to the zoo yesterday, but after we came back from the zoo, the kids took their nap, and I went over to the recycling center. They have a single-stream processing center, which means that here in Farmington Hills, we just dump everything in the bin, and they sort it out once it gets there. And I just wanted to see how that all worked. So I went, and it was seriously interesting. I got to see what happens to my recyclables, and if you live in Farmington, Farmington Hills, Novi, South Lyon, Southfield, Walled Lake, or Wixom, or if you've ever put your used coffee cup in the styrofoam recycling bin in the narthex, then I saw what happened to your recyclables too. Now, I have to admit I was a little overwhelmed by these huge bales of newspaper and the gigantic bins of plastic jugs and tin cans. And as I was sitting there just being overwhelmed, the woman giving the tour told me that I was looking at just a single day's worth of items that would be delivered there. And that made me even more overwhelmed, just to realize the huge quantity of stuff that we use and discard every day, just in this one little corner of the world. Now, it made me grateful that we have a recycling facility like this, but it also made me want to work on reducing the amount of packaging and just stuff I use in general. Now, admittedly, I was not always interested in what happened to my trash. Growing up, my family usually recycled whatever, the small handful of things at that time that our curbside program in Pittsburgh would accept. And I just threw unwanted stuff in the garbage and didn't really worry about what happened to it after the truck drove it away. But over the past 15 years or so, I've found myself on a spiritual journey related not just to recycling, but about the way that humans interact with the earth overall. It's definitely a journey that I feel like I'm only at the beginning of, but it has already transformed me and changed the way I think about God and the way that I think about following God as a disciple of Jesus. Now, for many people, environmentalism and faith don't really seem to go together. In a 2010 Pew survey, Americans were asked whether religion influenced their thinking on laws and regulations to protect the environment. About 5% said yes. 5%. This, to me, is a shockingly low number of people who I'm sure are very faithful and thoughtful people, but who don't really make connections between their most deeply held beliefs about God and the state of the earth. And I think that's in part because we haven't always done a very good job of talking about this in our faith communities. So there's been a growing number of congregations around the country, which we can now proudly say includes Hope, who recognize the Sunday before Earth Day as Earth Sunday. Now, you may say, every day should really be an Earth Day. We shouldn't spend just one day a year reflecting on the unfathomable complexity and splendor of life on this earth, and just one day to mourn and repent of the large-scale deterioration of every single system that supports life on this earth, while the other 365 days we condone business as usual. That is true. But I do think it's important for us to periodically lift up certain themes that are important for our life together as followers of Jesus, so that they may become a part of who we are each and every day. And certainly, I think it's clear that God intended for us as humans to have a life-giving relationship with the earth and all its creatures all the time, not just one day a year. From the very beginning of all creation in Genesis to the imagery of the tree of life in the pages of Revelation, God's word continually lifts up the beauty and goodness of this earth and the importance of our role as caretakers of creation. And as we see in our text from John, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, came to this earth so that we might have life and have it abundantly. This abundant life is not just for us as humans, but for the whole world. After all, we are just one part of a huge planetary system, an earth that is living and responsive to God. We cannot exist without clean air and soil and water and vegetation and fellow creatures of the earth. We belong to this fertile earth far more than it could ever belong to us. As author Thomas Berry states, planetary health is primary. Human well-being is derivative. The abundant life that Jesus came to give is for the whole planet, indeed for the whole cosmos. And as participants in this great system, we get to experience it too. In so many ways, however, humans have overlooked this basic relationship that we have with the world around us and have made our interaction with nature mostly utilitarian. We value it for what we can get out of it. I've heard it suggested that our basic ethic with regard to the world around us is master and slave. We view ourselves as masters and the rest of the world as slaves. The living material is out there and will make the decisions on how to use it. So the past 80 years or so have seen an unprecedented dominance of the earth by humans, with incredible abuse of our planet and an attempt to ignore the vital interdependence we have with it. And as hard as it is for me personally to admit this, we, as pretty well-off Americans, are a really, really big part of this problem. You've probably heard some of these statistics. Americans are 5% of the world's population and use between 20 and 30% of the world's resources. Americans generate the equivalent of 4.5 pounds of waste per person every day. Again, as 5% of the world's population, we generate half of the world's solid waste. And the world is suffering from humanity's overconsumption and our literal trashing of the earth. 1 in every 8 known plant species is threatened with extinction or is already virtually extinct. 1 in 4 vertebrate species are in sharp decline or facing serious pressure from human activities. 51% of the freshwater animal species of the world are declining in number. The overall rate of extinction is estimated to be between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than it would be naturally. So this is serious, and it's pretty depressing stuff. I've heard people make reference to the green blues, that grief and anxiety and sense of loss that comes along with the realization that we are handing our kids and our grandkids a diminished planet. It's a sadness that settles in when we realize our everyday, ordinary way of life is actually running Genesis backwards. We are decreating, destroying the things that God has made. Now, I could end here. We could all go home feeling guilty and overwhelmed, which I think is where a lot of presentations of the current state of the environment leave us. But the point is, this is the point where our faith really does have something to say to us. And the first is this: if we have the green blues, if we are grieving the state of the natural world, that's actually probably a good thing. Theologian Larry Rasmussen says it's a matter of love that we feel this way. We love life, and we love the world, and love has its costs. We grieve when a loved one suffers. So if we feel the green blues, we should not despair. We should simply recognize that pervasive sense of love that God has imbued in this world and in which we share. And that love is what leads God on his whole redemptive plan for this world. God sees that we suffer. God sees that the whole earth is suffering. As we heard from Romans, the whole creation is groaning under the corruption and deterioration that it is living under. And God's Spirit groans along with us in sighs too deep for words. And God is about the business of renewing this whole creation, for redeeming and setting free the whole created order. That's what Easter and this whole Easter season is all about. It's not just that God has done an extraordinary miracle on Jesus' behalf. It's that with Jesus, the remaking of God's creation of space, time, and matter has already begun. God's future has come forward to meet us in the present. What God intends to do at the last has already broken into the world the way it is. Remember that scene from the gospel where Jesus, he had risen from the grave, and Mary Magdalene mistook him for the gardener. Indeed, Jesus is the gardener, arisen to redeem all of creation. And we, as his followers, are invited to be part of his redemptive team. We must be agents, God's agents, in bringing signs of that renewal now. We are called to search out how the present groaning creation can be set free from its bondage to decay and experience the freedom that comes when the children of God are glorified. We don't have to save the world. That's God's job. But we are called to shine the light of Christ into dark places, to be new creation people here and now, bringing signs and symbols of the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. And so, what we do on a daily basis, on a small scale, really does matter. There's this hilarious article in The Onion, the satirical newspaper, that has the headline, "How bad for the environment can throwing away one plastic bottle be? 30 million people wonder." We all know the power of lots of people doing small things together, adding up to big things. But I also want to give witness to the power of taking this journey towards more sustainable actions in our everyday life, regardless of whether 30 million people around us are doing the same thing or not. I mentioned earlier that my own family has really tried to be more intentional about the ways that we personally interact with the environment. Little things like having a compost pile in our backyard and buying local and organic food and really trying to reduce the amount of plastic junk that finds its way into our house. In the grand scheme of things, these things probably haven't made a huge impact on the environment, but they have changed us. They have made us pay more attention to our relationship in this bigger system and our relationship with the one who created this system. They have made us more aware of bigger steps that we can take, of advocacy that we can do to help make a bigger impact on this earth. And I tell you this not to somehow say, oh, we're so great, but just simply to bear witness to the transformative power of really trying to reconnect with this incredible world around us. It really does make a difference. It transforms us, and it does transform the world. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we walk in the footsteps of the one who reconciles all things. May we continue to live life abundantly and in relationship to both creation and the one who created us all.